Welcome to Fundraising Stories with Female Founders. I'm Julia Elliott-Brown, the founder and CEO of Enter the Arena. I'm a serial entrepreneur and an expert in raising investment and business growth. Our mission at Enter the Arena is to empower female founders to fly through pre-raise and investment and onto the exponential growth of their business with investment expertise and business coaching. Here we share the stories of inspirational female founders who've raised investment to inspire you to do the same. You'll hear their honest accounts of what it was really like to secure funding, the highs, the lows, and the challenges they experienced on the journey. And along the way, we'll discuss top tips for how you can be successful too. Today it's my pleasure to be speaking with Sarah Bertram, the co-founder and chief growth officer at Smile Tribe. Now, Smile Tribe is an exciting startup that has an app that you can talk to. You can check in with the app. It's called Sophie. So you can check in with Sophie daily, and she's there to help you live your life in a better way. So Sophie, the app, is all about improving your confidence, motivation, and mental health. Sophie gives you exercises and techniques to do every day, a little bit like your own personal life coach. It's all done using artificial intelligence, and it's all about building a world where everyone has someone to talk to. Now, before Sarah set up Smile Tribe, the name of her company, with her 3 co-founders in 2018, she spent 4 years at a top US investment bank working on the fixed income trading floor. But Sarah felt the calling to go into the entrepreneurial world, and so she took the leap out of corporate life to study for an MBA at London Business School to complement the first-class degree in economics that she already has, by the way. And also, Sarah speaks 3 languages, so impressive stuff. Now, Sarah is a vociferous mental health advocate, founding the Mental Health Awareness Initiative at London Business School. And she's also a big supporter of entrepreneurship and women in business, heading up the personal and professional development arm of the LBS Women in Business Club, and running the Tell series, an entrepreneurial speaker series for high-profile exited entrepreneurs. So Sarah seriously has a lot on her plate. And outside of her professional endeavours, Sarah's a devout yogi, a fitness enthusiast, nutrition junkie, and travel addict, all of which have been instrumental in her own mental health journey. Now, Sarah has raised £50,000 pre-seed funding to get Smile Tribe off the ground. And I'm really excited to hear more about Smile Tribe, her app Sophie, and how Sarah raised the £50,000 to get this business off the ground. So Sarah, welcome. It's really great to be talking with you today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you here. So tell us more about Smile Tribe. What's it all about? Tell us all about Sophie, the app, and how you came up with the whole idea in the first place.
I was at university at Bristol, my undergraduate, with 2 of the co-founders. And so I saw on George's LinkedIn that he was up to something in mental health and knew it's where I wanted to be. So I met up with him, and by the end of the coffee, it was literally like, when are you coming on board? We need to get this going. So now we have Sophie. Sophie is a voice communication driven artificial intelligence. She generates you personally curated daily check-ins and content, all spoken exercises, to sort of leverage the power of vocalization in inspiring you to live the life that you want to live. So live your best life, be the person that you want to be. It's all built on proven behavioral science, anything from CBT techniques to positive psychology to neuralistic programming. Our big vision is that there is such an injustice in access to these sort of techniques, and life coaching is sort of reserved for the elite sports professionals and the elite academics and sort of corporate world. And we don't think that that's fair. And in terms of improving people's mental health, I think this is, a very strong basis for so many people improving their mental health.
So tell us a bit more about how it works then. So do you set up a profile on there and you ask it questions? How does it actually give you the advice and support that you might need if you've got some mental health issues?
Yeah, so everyone will actually get different content, because that is the role of the artificial intelligence. So when you sign up, you'll give us a few details, a little bit of detail about what you're going through at the time, or just generally where your head's usually at. And then after that, you will have these daily check-ins, which there is a definite consistency to the daily check-ins, which is a sort of reflection on like the day before, what you learned from that day, and then a setup for the day ahead, like what you want to achieve from that day and how you think you need to be to achieve that. And it will be around that area. And then there will be a sort of wild card, which will be an exercise thrown in, which is personally curated and is delivered to help you with whatever you're going through. Be that like, I'm in a great place and I just want to be happier, and I want I want to be better. And that's very much like those of our users who are in that sort of growth mindset. And we will deliver an exercise which you speak out loud into the app, and would perform this exercise. And Sophie will actually she will understand what you're saying to a certain extent and respond as appropriate. So it becomes like a conversation.
It's something that will become even more and more powerful the more you learn through the artificial intelligence.
Yeah, so actually we like to think that as a user uses Sophie more, what they can get out of Sophie will be better and better every time, because every time Sophie understands them a little bit more and gets a little bit more about what they're going through, where they want to go with it, and therefore delivers more and more appropriate content. And once you've done your daily check-in, it's kind of like a gateway. It's like you have to do this to get through. And then it's like when you're a kid and you're told to eat your vegetables to get your dessert. And then you have access to the whole suite of exercises. So a bit similar to, say, like in Headspace, where you can just go through and choose what package you want to work on. With us, you need to do that sort of daily check-in, because that is the habit building, which is incredibly important to get the results that we hope we provide. And then you have access to mountains of resources. So
fantastic, amazing. So it's a business that is currently in development, is that right?
Yes. I say this, the app, we are actually now testing the app in-house. So Sophie is fully in existence. We've been running a lot of experiments through our MVP, but the actual app that we hope to release on the App Store is now being tested, and we hope should be released by December.
Fantastic. So let's talk about funding for the business then, because it's one of the biggest questions that entrepreneurs have is, how do I get that funding right at the beginning when I am a pre-launch, which is where you are, pre-revenue, there's no real traction yet, but you need funding to get this thing off the ground. So tell me, how have you gone about that?
So in some ways it's been really helpful that we've got a number of co-founders, and therefore we've got quite designated roles. And this is definitely kind of the area I wanted to be in. The others, one of our guys is very much product focused, one's very tech focused. And if you're a CEO that is sort of a lone CEO, I completely think this is a really hard one, because you're torn in a million directions. I feel like I'm torn in a million directions, and I've got a few co-founders with me. So I started just running around meeting everyone and anyone, and was meeting up with VCs, even though we knew we probably didn't want to take VC funding at this stage. Just wanted to understand what people were thinking about our product, where we should go with it, and generally what the sort of landscape was. And then I started to realize that actually angels is probably a much better bet at this stage, and met up with a couple of syndicates of angels, one or two of whom contacted me via LinkedIn, just because I was making some noise about the app on LinkedIn, which was really great. So it's definitely worth, making some noise on your personal, with some sort of personal PR. And then met up with one of the very senior guys at Citi, where I used to work. And he's since retired and does a lot of angel investing. So sort of had a business meeting with him, and he was completely bought into the mission. And I suddenly realized like that role that angels play, where they really, if they are passionate about your vision, they're really on board and they just want to run with you. And so that's where we started.
Fantastic. So actually that first funding that you've had has come from somebody who was within your own network.
Yeah. So I wouldn't say that, he was sort of in my direct network, but it was, through sort of past personal contacts, I suddenly realized the opportunity that was there.
And I guess coming from having worked on the trading floor in the city, there must be plenty of people within the kind of wider network that you could have spoken to. So
yeah, I think there probably were. It's always a difficult one, because I think going for somebody that is sort of an angel investor, even if it's sort of in their part-time, is a really good way to go about it, because they kind of know what to expect. They understand the startup world. I think there's sometimes a risk with sort of financial professionals or top corporate professionals that they don't really understand the startup world, and they sort of expect corporate results and corporate structure and things like this, which as a startup is, as much as you try and do that, you never know which way things are going to turn any second, and that doesn't always work too well. And I think if you've got that pressure externally, it can sometimes be really difficult. So
you raised £50,000. So was it just from one investor? And tell us about the valuation and how that investment was structured.
Yeah, so it was in the end just from one investor, because we actually had some interest from a couple of others. But in the end, we decided that our investor that we chose was very much on board with the vision. He could bring a lot to us, and we felt that, we were really hitting home with something with him. And I think if you get too many angels, it sort of makes the cap table very confusing. You've got a lot of people to deal with, which at this stage you don't really want to be doing. And so we just from one, and he also offered us some very favourable terms. So we raised via a SAFE, which is an interest-free loan, has no maturity, and just at your first eligible round, which for us will be our seed round, he converts into equity at a 20% discount, and gets SEIS preference. Okay. So for the investor, it's a good deal, and for us it's a great deal because we're not paying any interest, and we don't have a hard stop about when we have to raise our seeds. So
you raised via a convertible loan, effectively, which is actually a really great way to raise money at the early stages of a business when you don't really know what your valuation is. And as you say, you didn't have do you have a time frame by which you need to be doing your next raise for that loan to convert?
Yeah, no, I mean, the valuation point that you raise is exactly why we wanted to do this, because we spoke to a few VCs and they were just saying, at this stage, you're going to get a really damaging valuation. And for us, we don't, we're reticent to give away any equity as it is. And therefore, we really want the person to be on board and at a favourable valuation, which we think with a little bit of money, we could very easily get to in a couple of months. And therefore, it was just sort of biding our time. And and then the convertible loan, I think, is a great way to raise, because we, in general, I think, if you're very early stage, you're going to get a damaging valuation and have to give away quite a lot of equity, which you don't really want to be doing. And by the time you sort of hit your seed or whenever it converts, you'll be at a much better stage. That's what we're hoping. And our maturity on the loan is essentially when we raise seed. That is the point of conversion. So that if that's longer than 18 months away, it does actually convert automatically. But we very much hope in the next 6 months to be raising seeds. So.
Okay, great. So a really great way to kind of get yourself off the blocks. So tell us a bit more about why your angel investor came on board. What do you think were the top things that he was attracted to in your business as an investment?
Yeah, so I mean, I'd like to think when I had the conversation with him the first time, I really hit home at something, a little piece of passion that he's he's always been very passionate about sort of the role of goal setting, and is starting his own business with some other top financial professionals around this, and how in the corporate world goals are very much not set to be achievable, or given you sort of a pathway to get there. And therefore I knew the sort of life coaching side of this would definitely appeal to him, and I knew therefore that he could add value to us as we add value to him. And so I think it was definitely something that aligned with his visions of where he wants to be investing. And because obviously he's got, lots of options about different types of products that people come to him all the time. And I think it was definitely aligned with his views of the world. And problems I think he's experienced and other people around him have experienced in the corporate world. And then also I'd like to think our team and our passion. So we've, I think we've got a great team. I love our team. We've got some very experienced startup founders, a couple of exits. I'm from a finance background before my MBA. Then we've got an amazing group of exceptional interns who we're really, really lucky to have, who have all just bought into the mission and wanted to come on and work for us for free, basically, for very limited financial means. And they are everything from psychologists to neurosciences to UX designers. And all of us, the thing that unites us, all of us have been affected by mental health problems in one way or another, we're personally or a close family member or anything like that. So I think when we sold our story, it came across as very credible from sort of a professional academic sense that we have the abilities to do this and execute on our vision. And then also from a passion standpoint, because I think running a startup is not easy and you have to be passionate, otherwise you just won't last. So I think he really bought into those main things, because at such an early stage the product is more a vision, to be honest.
Yeah, you're so right. I mean, the team is absolutely everything at the beginning, because any investor worth his salt's going to know that you're going to probably pivot the business several times as you go forward, but you've got to be a strong team to be able to do that. I mean, how did you find this whole experience of raising finance?
So I'm a bit of a strange one in the sense that my favorite thing is to be having meetings and sort of pitching and things like this. I really enjoy it. It's nerve-wracking. It's, the night before your brain is like whirring and buzzing and it's exhausting, but I love it. Like, I am happiest when I'm sort of in a meeting sense. If I'm just sat plugging away at my computer, I tend to get a bit like, oh, I don't want to do this. Whereas as soon as I go out and have a meeting, I'm like buzzing. So I quite enjoyed it. But one thing I'll say is it is absolutely exhausting. So you're running around from like place to place across London, like, no problem, I can come to your office. Like, oh no, I've got to run from one side of London to the other.
I mean, you mentioned that you had lots of meetings and you met with kind of anyone and everyone. Do you feel like you kind of possibly wasted some energy talking to the wrong people? What's your view on that?
Yeah, I think if I did it again, I'd try and be a lot more structured. So I hope for when we raise seed, I'll be a little more structured, but and actually sort of go to see people that I genuinely think can invest at this stage. But I do definitely think there's value in sort of finding out what's out there, what people are looking at. And a lot of the people I met with, although they may have been later stage, were actually very passionate about this area. And therefore I just wanted to sort of keep them warm and let them know that we exist. And I don't think there's any harm in that. I definitely would say that sustaining my energy was probably the biggest challenge, and not panicking too much about the fact that like, oh, I've got so many amazing, like huge meetings tomorrow, I desperately need to be on form and all of this. So I think I'd probably try and structure it in a way that didn't sort of cause it to be so exhausting. However, it's so hard. You never know who's going to buy into your vision, and some of the ones were quite unexpected. That it's always valuable taking every meeting you can get, really. and I think I'll carry on doing that, to be honest. I have to say, like, you know, having supportive people around you is really, really important. And my co-founders are brilliant. Like, one of the best things for me is that they're a group of all men. And yeah, they want me to be the front and center, kind of like the face of the business, and they trust me to be going out and selling it better than them. And therefore that to me is really great. I used to work with a whole team of guys on the trading floor, surprisingly enough. And I didn't really ever feel that same support and that same trust in my ability, like, sort of over theirs. And that's been really great. And then also, like, my partner is a superstar and definitely took the burden of, like, everything around the house during that time. And I think that's really important. You need people there that are going to support you.
It's fantastic. You're absolutely right. And you are in a position of luxury, really. There being 4 co-founders. Not many entrepreneurs are in that place. So, you know, tell us a bit more about this whole thing about, obviously, you're the only female in your team, and you were the one that was fronting your fundraising campaign, which is fantastic.
I think I'm probably quite blind to a lot of it because I've always worked with all men. So I think I probably come across often quite sort of male in my approach, just because that's kind of how I've always worked. I also grew up with brothers. My whole family were guys, basically. I've never really been a sort of girly girl. And so I probably do come across quite male in my approach. And that's never anything I've tried to be. It's just kind of me.
What do you mean by male in your approach? What's your definition?
I'm quite, the stereotypical kind of, I'm quite hitchy. I'm quite strong. I'm quite, I mean, I used to be on the trading floor, obviously quite sort of aggressive in that way, but the sort of stereotypical, you know, man pitching who will be quite strong with his vision and like that. And I think it is one thing I do find sometimes is that in other arenas, I don't think I really found this in my raising, but it's hard sometimes coming across like that as a woman, because you either look like you're being fake and trying to be like a guy, or you seem quite sort of a lot more aggressive than a guy would in that situation, or sort of bossy or whatever it is. And that sometimes can be quite hard. I have to say, I actually found more challenges for being a woman where that I never knew what to wear. And it sounds so stupid, but it's so easy for guys. Like, they've got a meeting, they just put on, like, you know, an open neck shirt, and, you know, because you never want to look too dressy, you never want to look too casual. Like, it's like the whole VC startup thing. You can't go in a suit because you look out of place. And so as a woman, it's like, oh, wow, what do I do here?
What did you wear?
I usually just sort of try to go for, you know, sort of black jeans and like a suit jacket, or, you know, try and have like that mixture of smart and casual, maybe, and with sort of some smart boots that weren't too heeled or anything. Because I didn't ever want to come in and be like, whoa, because it shocks. And that's always a really difficult balance, I think, for female entrepreneurs to strike, because they don't want to look like they tried too hard. They don't want to look like they're not taking it seriously. And it sounds so stupid, but it's a really big thing.
I mean, I suppose it's probably something the guys have to think about too. I mean, they have to think, do I wear a suit? How casual do I go? I mean, it's a challenge for everybody, but you're right. It's because we have so much more choice about the kind of things we can wear, it becomes an even more important decision, doesn't it?
And I do think that's also linked in sort of biases that we have within ourselves about how am I going to be perceived? And you never want to be perceived like wrongly. And maybe that is sort of, you know, like an imposter syndrome thing that you're like, oh, but I want them to think that I'm serious and that I should be here. But everyone thinks that, whether you're a guy or a girl, you know, like whatever gender, everyone has this kind of feeling of like, I want them to love my product and I want them to think we're great. So I think as females, we've just got to forget our own biases and just sort of go out there and go for it, basically.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fantastic advice. I think if you go out there feeling that you're going to be discriminated against, you'll reflect that and become defensive, which I think can be counterintuitive.
Yeah, definitely.
Counterproductive, I should say, counterproductive. And you mentioned that your partner was a huge support to you. Tell us more about how he helped.
Yeah, he was brilliant. I'm really lucky that we have a relationship which is incredibly split on all fronts. We actually met on the trading floor, so we've always had very similar kind of work visions and life and everything. He's definitely got an entrepreneurial streak, which I'm sure will be scratched at some point. And therefore he completely understands, and we're very happy to sort of tag team and like take turns of, you know, who's gonna do all the cooking or whatever. And so for me, just when I was running around London left, right and center, knowing that I would come home in the evening and there would be sort of like a cooked dinner, like a home cooked dinner, rather than me being like grabbing something on my way home, and somebody to sort of tell me to calm down and talk about normal things, is always very good, because you need to switch your brain off at some point, and tell me to just stop and go to bed, because sleep is actually way more important with a lot of this than like over preparing. Yeah, so I was really grateful just to have someone else there to sort of make me remember the real world as well.
That's great. I'm glad you have him there to help you.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about women entrepreneurs raising finance, because I know that you're very passionate about supporting female entrepreneurs and women in business. Yeah. And obviously there are not enough women entrepreneurs out there raising finance, with only around 2.7% of funding going to women still. What's your personal view, Sarah, on how we can get more female founded businesses getting investment to scale?
Yeah, I do think this is a hard one. I actually think the solution is getting more women investors, so getting more females to the top. Now that's easier said than done, and I like, it's something that is similar in finance, in banking where I was, because there aren't so many women at each stage, so getting them to the top is even harder. But I also think it requires quite a cultural change amongst the sort of investor group, because I do think that still what they look for in startup founders are quite male qualities, and often like the businesses that women might start might not fit what they think is, you know, going to be the next big thing, or might not fit their view of like sort of what a sort of tech product should be, or anything like that. And I think that it may also just be quite a female focused product, which, you know, they sometimes neglect to believe that that is sort of 50% of our population, and therefore if it's a very successful product, it's going to make them a lot of money. And often I think that cultural change is required internally in the investors, in the investing, sort of in the businesses and the funds themselves. And I do think there's a change coming. There's some really exciting VCs springing up now that are definitely focused on diversity and on sort of being conscious of their own unconscious bias, which, you know, imposing special techniques in order, like, and regulatory sort of internal measures to make sure that they're not, even sort of men and women, like we all have unconscious biases, and making sure that we're not falling prey to those when doing investing. So therefore, I think that's a really exciting step. And I think, as you know, in the next 10 years, I think this will be such a different conversation, because I really do believe that people are waking up to this and seeing it is a gap in the market as much as like something that they need to face. So,
I mean, did you find that yourself? Because I guess the product that you were out there speaking about could be seen to be quite female focused, quite touchy feely. An app called Sophie. Did you get any kind of bias when you were talking about that product? And also, were you speaking mostly to male investors with all these meetings?
Yeah, so I've spoken exclusively to men.
Wow.
Not by design. There is a female investor that I know, and have spoken to sort of, you know, casually, but in terms of pitching, yeah, every single one was a guy. I didn't think I really noticed that until just then, but yeah. And I think that I think one of the problems we've had with Sophie is that male mental health is becoming a big thing. However, it's very much guys are very much like, oh yeah, my mate was suicidal, and they're really passionate about it. But it's definitely not such a big thing about managing your mental health like it would be amongst a lot of women I know that are still like, they're aware that they have bad days, good days, and that is what mental health is. And they would be much more willing to do this kind of self-improvement and keep themselves on track. And the other big issue that we've really faced is that, yes, it's kind of a mental health business, but we like to call it mental wellness or mental well-being, because actually I think it's a much more holistic kind of view of well-being. But people often think that we're a charity or something like that, and there is definitely a social element to what we're doing, so that's why we're doing it. But we're still for profit, and we're still taking this seriously, and we still want to build a very successful business. And often I feel like people are like, oh, that's nice, and you're like, no, I am pitching to you with a real business. Like, this is a huge gap in the market which nobody has tried to solve yet. And people are waking up to the whole mental health area and the fact that it's a huge social problem and something needs to be done. But I think it is always going to be a struggle for us that people just think we're building a charity.
Yeah, especially at this stage when you haven't yet proved any revenue. So
yeah, exactly.
You'll get there. I mean, so what is going to be next for Smile Tribe then? You mentioned you were going to be doing some probably fundraising again in 2019.
Yes.
What's the plan?
So the plan is to get the app in its sort of first version live and complete on the Apple Store. It's only in iOS at the moment, so it would just be on the App Store. However, we need to make sure that it is exactly where we want it. That should be definitely in December. It should be live. And then we want to sort of move everyone from our MVP version, which was a very similar thing, but based as a bot on WhatsApp. So we'll move all of those users over to the app, do a big integration, and then continue experimenting and learning. We are very big on running experiments and making sure we're going in the right direction and learning from every single little bit, not taking anything as an assumption and just testing. So we want to continue to do that. And we're taking quite a lot of meetings from some sort of unexpected places, I suppose, because we got some organic interest. And at this stage, I just think we need to explore and work out, although it may not have been where we thought we were going to go with this, actually, we need to have a look at it and see where is going to be the best demand. And then raise seed probably around spring. There's a few metrics we want to hit in terms of number of users and things we've learned first, and prove a little bit of revenue, run a couple of pilots, hopefully. And all of this are in the pipeline. So hopefully by spring, early summer, we'll be ready to raise seed.
Fantastic. And I guess it's about finding the investors that will understand this need to take a very iterative approach to development.
Yeah, we're very keen to get the right VCs and investors on board, people that really are bought into the journey with us, because giving away equity is a big thing, and therefore we want to give it to the right people, and make sure that they really believe in our product as well. It's definitely easier said than done doing that, but I believe there are quite a few out there who are very passionate about this space. So yeah, that's the plan.
Exciting stuff. Well, we wish you all the very best, both in terms of rolling out Sophie and also raising the next round of finance that you need to get there. Thank you so much for sharing your journey. Really appreciate your time today, Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure being here. Thank you.
All right, keep us posted on your journey. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thanks for following Fundraising Stories with Female Founders. This content is all provided to you for free, so if you've enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe so you never miss another one. Enter the Arena has helped hundreds of female founders fly through pre-raise and investment and onto the exponential growth of their business. Our first-hand experience Expert guidance and proven programs help female founders unleash the Wonder Woman inside. To see if we can help you do the same, head over to www.enterthearena.co.uk. I'm Julia Elliott Brown, and I look forward to talking with you soon.